Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Family Sedan channel. I got just one topic to share with you in this latest Moon Family Sedan tepid jam. And it's, headlines on the screen. It's from the Crypto Basic. It reads as follows. Deaton dismisses claims that he's on Ripple payroll, says, I don't defend Ripple, I defend truth. And I gotta be honest with you, it really burns my biscuits that there are some people, given John Deaton's track record, there are some people who have the audacity to claim that he's secretly on Ripple's payroll, as if he's some sort of fraud. It's the most bogus BS nonsense. You better believe I'm going to highlight this. And in fact, I'm going to let John Deaton explain in his own words. He wrote up a whole thing on Twitter, and the message deserves to get out. He wrote it up yesterday. I want to share it with you. And it's extra repulsive, like having followed what was going on for almost 2 years now in the SEC v. Ripple case, and seeing just about 100% of what Attorney Deaton has put out into the world for the last 2 years. I've seen almost 100%. I can confidently say that. He is a force for good. He's speaking on behalf of, I believe now the number is over 76,000 XRP holders, all of which know they're getting the shaft. There's so many more beyond that who hadn't signed up. I mean, there's millions and millions and millions of XRP holders, obviously. And it's even greater than that, though. Because if things go poorly here, it's going to hit all of crypto. So, like, the impact of what Attorney Deaton is doing here is greater than I would have fully understood or appreciated if you go back to, like, January of 2021. I always appreciated what he's doing, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. The gravity of the situation became increasingly clear as time passed. And I understood from the beginning, yes, of course it would have impact on crypto, but to what degree, especially after Gensler came in, like, all sorts of things developed, and it just became more and more clear. And then looking at the facts and understanding more, even though I'm not an attorney, understanding more about securities law, thanks to him and Attorney Hogan and others in the community, like, and understanding the specifics and all the implications. So going through all of that and then see people, oh yeah, you're just some sort of scammy guy that's on Ripple's payroll. I'm like, oh hell, you just get the hell out of here, you little rat bastard. So I'm going to share with you what Attorney Deaton had to say on this. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a legal or financial background of any kind. I'm not offering legal or financial advice. And you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And I'll note first that I made a whole video about this, actually. There's this thread here. I'll just open it up real quick. I covered what Attorney Deaton had to say from this thread from a few days back. And it had to do with Chris Larson and Brad Garlinghouse, and why it seemed pretty clear. I'm just kind of paraphrasing at this point, admittedly, but it seemed pretty clear to Attorney Deaton, and I certainly agree, that the SEC overcharge shouldn't have gone after those two. It didn't make sense. It's outside of precedent. There's no fraud claims. Without fraud claims, it doesn't make any sense. It's not the norm. And also, because of that, it opened them up to a whole bunch of additional facts and topics that are negative for the SEC. So it kind of ended up being a blessing in disguise. And so I don't want to rehash the whole video where I went through what he had to say on that and my thoughts along the way. But that's where this stemmed from. He said those things, and that's when certain people started contacting him at his law firm, accusing him of just being some sort of paid Ripple shill. It's just the most complete and ridiculous nonsense. And so here's what Attorney Deaton had to say. He said, so I tweeted out the below thread, and within 30 minutes, I was getting direct messages and emails at my law firm asking me how much money the Ripple executives are paying me to write my threads. Facepalm emoji, and rightfully so. Articles like the one below routinely state exactly what this one does. Crypto law founder and pro-Ripple lawyer attorney John Deaton responded. Yeah, so that's the thing. Look, and he cites a Crypto Basic article. I do like the Crypto Basic, but all of crypto media gets things wrong. And this is an obvious one in my mind. They've been covering enough Deaton stuff to know this is not the case. Pro-Ripple lawyer. It should say pro-XRP attorney or pro-crypto attorney. Either of those would be appropriate, but say it's pro-Ripple. He's not representing Ripple. It doesn't make sense to have Ripple in there. And so, if we're sitting down with whoever wrote that, hopefully we could just say, like, oh yeah, my mistake. I would hope that would be the response anyway. But stuff like that happens, and then it puts John Deaton in a light that's not quite accurate. Makes him look like something a little bit different than who he actually is, and that's kind of a problem there. And then he says, when someone tweets out that they think the Ripple executives gifted themselves too much XRP, I don't challenge what they say. It's a fair criticism. When someone says Ripple owns too much XRP, and that fact makes them less attracted to the token or project, I don't argue with them. And let me just pause there. I have felt that way, and I've been saying that same point since I started my YouTube channel. I mean, I may have even said it on Twitter before. I don't know for sure. I mean, 5 years worth of tweets at this point. But I've always thought that, because when I was doing my own research and I found out early on, before I bought XRP, I knew that Ripple held whatever the quantity was at the time. I was like, that's a ton. I was like, oh, okay, well, this looks like they're good for the ecosystem. Could bite me on the rear side. I recognize that, but I'm going to buy anyway because XRP is decentralized. That was essentially my thoughts in a nutshell at the time, and I still had a ton to learn. But I didn't put in a crazy amount anyway. I was like, let me just get in and learn more about it, because so far it makes sense. That's basically the approach that I was taking. And it is a fair critique. I just don't care. But if somebody else does care, then it's just subjective opinion. There's no perfect answer. It doesn't mean they're wrong or I'm wrong, or I'm right or they're right. It's just subjective opinion. I don't care. In fact, to the contrary, I find it as a positive, since they have been such a force for good, and so much of the money that they've made from selling XRP, they've actually put back into the XRP ecosystem. They literally have. So as long as they're being good stewards in that sense, I'm all good with that. But it's a fair critique. The only critiques I have are the ones that aren't grounded in reality, like the fake ones about Ripple can freeze XRP and that type of crap. Anything that's false like that, or you're just spreading lies and nonsense. Those things start to bug me. But if you just look at the facts and we come to different conclusions, that's perfectly fine and reasonable. I can still respect people that come to a different conclusion. That's perfectly fine. So I'm with John Deaton on that. Anyway, he continues. When someone tweets out that Ripple helped create a secondary market by gifting XRP to people, or selling XRP to people, or offering incentives to list on exchanges, I don't challenge them. Even though almost every project has done the same. They have the right to their opinions. But if someone like Michael Saylor, and I'll just pause now, I think you all know who he is, but he's the CEO and founder of MicroStrategy. He's a Bitcoin maximalist, perhaps getting a bit toxic-y, if you will. And his firm has just bought all the Bitcoin that they possibly could. But anyway, so Deaton says, but if someone like Michael Saylor goes on a top podcast like Patrick Bet-David's, as he did recently, and he claims that Ripple or Brad Garlinghouse, etc., committed fraud or deceived or misrepresented the public, implying the case against Ripple involves fraud, I simply state the truth. Yeah, exactly. And I was positive. I have the exact same problem with that. And Michael Saylor, it's like he has his own definition of what the Howey test is, but it's not the real Howey test. And then he says that Ripple is just unethical. I believe that's the actual word he used. It's unethical. It's just a facepalm moment as far as I'm concerned. Ripple's just the most transparent of pretty much any company in all of crypto and blockchain. Then Attorney Deaton says, for example, I point out that after a 30-month-long investigation, the SEC didn't charge fraud, misrepresentation, or omission against Ripple, Chris Larson, Brad Garlinghouse, David Schwartz, or any other executive, past or present. I point out to the Ripple haters, some of them are Ripple's competitors, to only imagine if every crypto company, platform, or project underwent 30 months of an exhaustive SEC investigation. Would all of them be able to avoid a fraud, misrepresentation, or omission charge? I point out that, as a prosecutor, if you're bringing a case against the company and its executives, and you have grounds to allege fraud or misrepresentation, you definitely charge it because of criminal penalties, i.e. possible jail. Charging fraud gives the government leverage. Thus, you can bet that since the SEC had already decided to sue the two executives for aiding and abetting Ripple in the offer and sale of an unregistered security, which is a non-fraud charge, if there had been valid grounds to charge fraud, without question, the SEC would have. I don't claim Ripple is without criticism. I simply point out indisputable truths which cause some people to say, you're defending these guys, so you must be on their payroll. Trust me, after learning what Ripple's lawyers are likely charging Ripple, I can think of worse things. I point out these facts not for Ripple, but for XRP holders whose property is being impacted by the FUD, mistruths, and false narratives promulgated by people who are intentionally misleading or they don't know what they're talking about, even if technically a rocket scientist. In fact, Charles Gasparino and Eleanor Terrett wrote in their opus, Deaton is no Ripple fanboy. I'll just pause to note, of course, those are the two of the Fox business journalists who have been covering this story, of course. I'm sure most of you are aware. Deaton then says, now that doesn't mean I have anything against Ripple either, because in full disclosure, I bought Ripple pre-IPO shares off Link2, along with Kraken, BitPay, Uphold, and SoFi. You can be a Bitcoin maxi like Saylor and have your opinions about XRP, even believing it's a S-word coin or that the technology is inferior, even though the XRP ledger has proven to be a better layer 2 solution to the Bitcoin problem than Lightning Network. But you don't get to make up facts. The way the SEC has approached crypto in general, and the way the SEC has behaved specifically versus Ripple and its executives during this case is absolutely appalling. The SEC has truly become an innovation-killing cesspool of corruption. By the way, it's not just me. A judge overseeing discovery in the case literally said the SEC was engaging in hypocrisy, and lawyers at the SEC lacked a faithful allegiance to the law. Tells you all you need to know why Saylor and others should pause before quoting the SEC. Excellent rebuttal. And so think about this, and it's so absurd the people that would make such a claim against Deaton here. It's like, first of all, you have no damn evidence for that because there is none, because that's a bunch of BS nonsense. But think about this, like, is it possible for there to be an attorney on the planet, any attorney on the planet, to say things that are favorable about Ripple or Brad Garlinghouse or Chris Larson and not be on the payroll? Is that a thing that is possible in life? Obviously, yes. So, when an attorney, John Deaton, is saying things that happen to be favorable in that case, and you have no evidence to prove that he's on the payroll of Ripple, why would you be such a dumbass as to assert such a thing? You damn trolley baby back bitches? Like, what in the ever-loving hell is your malfunction? You cottage cheese eating sons of bitches. I just don't know what else to say about that. So I'm glad that he took the time to swap back against it. And then the fact that they're like reaching out to him at his law firm, like, come on. What is wrong with these freaking basement dwellers? Go eat your Hot Pocket, little... Oh, I almost said an inappropriate word. I almost said something worse than a PG-13 word. You know, as spicy as I like to get on this channel is PG-13, and even then I don't do much of that. But almost went up to the R level. So there was some restraint there, but it was something about seeing a person on a day in the future that would be Tuesday if you got the cut of my jib. But I guess I'll go ahead and wrap up there. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the Moon Family Sedan.